So still on parenting teenagers, and today we want to see how choosing and providing role models for your teenager can help both of you navigate through this transition much more smoothly and in a more friendly manner. Your teenager is seeking out role models, whether they know it or they don't know it. They might be doing it subconsciously. So you'd find that when they get to 13 or 14, they start befriending a neighbor in the building, an adult neighbor. And you know that this neighbor is of questionable character. You don't like how they live their life. You don't approve how they have relationships. You don't approve their drinking habits. You know that they use drugs. And you're very sure that they're going to be of bad influence to your teenager. So instinctively, when you see your teenager with this neighbor, you're going to warn your teenager against spending any more time with them. And already you're having a lot of fights with your teenager. Remember, they're going through a phase that is normally called stress and storm. Their emotions are all over the place, and they're not able, they're struggling with regulating their emotions. And most of the time they get into conflict with you. And sometimes as a parent, you feel at a loss because every interaction you have with your teenager is like they're setting you up to fail in whatever message that you're trying to convey. However, soft or understanding or lenient you try to be, somehow your teenager does not receive that well. And it's not for you particularly, but it's an inevitable part of this transition that your teenager is trying to make. They might be doing that intentionally, yes, of course. But again, there are a lot of things that are happening in their life in this particular transition that they're struggling with. And so they need you to cut them some slack during that phase. Of course, you have to continue instituting discipline because, like we said, their reasoning capacity is really, really low, but their feelings are way ahead of their growth. So to proactively facilitate this phase more effectively, start introducing role models to your teenager, role models that you pick yourself, role models that you've judged by yourself and you've determined that they're of sound character and can have positive impact on your teenager's transition. Remember, your teenager is very curious to know what happens when they become adults. They have questions about how to make it as an adult, what liberties they're going to have when they turn 18 and they're emancipated from you. And they might also use this as an opportunity as they're, befriending the neighbor in your building is not a coincidence. Perhaps they wanted to try the drugs for the first time that your neighbor is abusing or using. Perhaps they wanted to try alcohol for the first time. So all these curiosities that they have within them, they might be seeking out adults who can fulfill these needs that they have. And so when you decide as a parent, ahead of time, before they become teenagers, to start introducing them to role models that are going to positively influence them, then you sort of occupy them with other things. You redirect their desires and their transition into things that are much more conducive, things that are much more constructive and productive through this phase. But if they're idle and they don't have any role model to look up to or to look around towards, then they start seeking out poor role models. Remember, their decision making is very, very poor in this particular phase of their life. So start looking. When your teenager is 12 years old, 10 years old, they're coming from a phase where it was important how they performed. So they wanted to show you that they can be the best. But now they're getting into a phase where it's important how they look, how they're perceived. And for that, they're going to be looking for different things in different adults. So they might be befriending the guard because it gives them a sort of opportunity that once they finish school, once they finish Form 4, I could try doing this to make money. So being a guard maybe does not require a lot of training, and as I'm waiting to go to college, I could do. So your teenager's mind is working all the time. And for you as a parent then is to make sure that you provide that environment, you provide these role models. They can be your colleagues at work, they can be your friends. So you can invite them to the house, or you can take them to those friends, whether at their workplace, and see how they're working, how they're making decisions, how they're doing things, how they spend their free time and things like that. So that your teenager can be able to see what they can start looking forward to. So provide your teenager with role models that you as a parent approve for your teenager.